Stand up, New York Giant fans. Sorry, I was a little bit late on Twitter. I said I was going to do it at 5:30. Was eating dinner a little bit late. Mike was able to come on a little bit later. Thank you for that. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm all right. I have Corona currently, so it's been a boring week and a half. It's been
Oh,
very
I didn't
boring.
know. Oh, I didn't
I
know
do.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
I've been like cooped up in my room for a week and a half now. I'm feeling good though. I mean, I'm getting my taste back with the food a little bit, so I'm feeling all right. But hopefully, I'll be out of here soon. But the Giants, man, it was rough last week. We were definitely riding high, and then kind of got put back in our place, if you will. You know, it was definitely a rough game, but hopefully, we somehow find a way to beat the Browns or Ravens coming up the next 2 weeks.
yeah, that's what it's going to come down to. Hope you're feeling better.
Yep.
I didn't even know that, but
That's all
yeah,
right.
that's what it's going to come down to. We got to find a way to win one out of these next two games, and we got to get lucky with Washington losing this week to Seattle and splitting their next two games to have any chance at the playoffs. Just going to say hello to a couple people. What's going on, Nick? What's going on, Simon? What's going on, Yuri? What's going on, Swaggertron? What's going on, John? Rafael DeLuna. Thank you guys for being here. Yuri's in the chat. Crispy's in the chat. Weatherboy's in the chat. Thank you. Moose. Thank you to everybody for being here. Stephen Lim, sports expert, man. Thanks for popping in the stream. Obviously, the big news of the day for the Giants was the virus. Dan, we're going to talk about last week's game as well, but we'll start with the kind of the news since then. We found out yesterday, or 2 days ago maybe, I think it was yesterday, that Daniel Jones now has a second injury to his other leg. I think it was a sprained ankle, and maybe that was caused due to the fact that he had the hamstring injury. Maybe he was favoring that leg too much, and that may have caused it. We'll never know. But it sounds like he's not going to play in this game. I'd be surprised based off the way he looked last week, how limited he looked, specifically in that second half. Now today, we find out that Jason Garrett, which a lot of Giants fans are not enamored with right now, but we find out that he is not going to be calling plays this week. He's got the virus. And on top of that, arguably our most important player outside of the quarterback, James Bradberry, I don't think he has it, but he had a close contact, so he may or may not have it. But regardless, he's going to be forced to miss this week. You factor in on top of that, Darnay Holmes more than likely will not play. He still hasn't practiced this week. He missed last week. We're thin in that secondary to begin with. Now you're going to ask Isaac Yiadom to be the number one corner, a guy that we were questionable about pretty much throughout this season in terms of whether or not he could be the two. And who knows what they're going to do at that second spot. Maybe they play Logan Ryan there. Maybe they play Love there. Maybe they play McKinney there. We don't have guys on this roster that I think we feel very comfortable with. So, of course, that's going to be the huge disadvantage going into this game for the New York Giants. We're going to have our backup quarterback more than likely with Colt McCoy, and we're going to be limited in the secondary.
It is going to be rough, and it does help that Odell Beckham is out. It definitely favors us, but even a guy like Rashard Higgins is actually pretty good on the outside. Donovan Peoples-Jones is coming on for the Browns lately. And, of course, Jarvis Landry in the slot. That's a very tough receiver to guard, and if Darnay Holmes is back to cover him, I feel better about it, but overall, it's going to be a very tough task. I mean, me and you were listing the cornerbacks on the depth chart before this started. We didn't even know half the people that they have left. I mean, it's going to be rough. So if it's Isaac Yiadom number one, that's a tall task in itself. And then number two is basically could be Logan Ryan, could be McKinney, but like it's going to be rough regardless, honestly, no matter who it is.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. It's definitely going to be a challenge, and Patrick Graham's going to be put to the test. Patrick Graham's done a great job of scheming all year. It's going to be even harder without arguably your most important player in the defense. It's going to be interesting to see what they do to try to fill in for the void with James Bradberry out. He's been such an instrumental part to this defense all year. And Gary says, what's up, Dana Bradberry? Big loss this week. Yeah, it's a huge loss. He's, like I said, he's probably our second most important player on this team outside of the quarterback. So that is not good. Giants are going to have to find a way to overcome it. I kind of want to recap, and then we'll get into this week's game. But I wanted to start with that. I kind of wanted to recap what happened last week, Mike, because I haven't gotten an opportunity to talk to you about it. Obviously, last week we were going in riding high. Giants won 4 straight, hadn't lost in over a month. It was like 6 weeks because we had the bye week on top of it. And Arizona was coming in, down. They had lost 3 straight. They were and really should have lost 5 straight. They had the Hail Mary game against Buffalo. They lost the game before that after the bye. They were not playing well after the bye, and leave it to the New York Giants. We have the letdown. Arizona gets their feet back under, and now Arizona looks like they're back on track. The thing that left me discouraged in this game more so than anything else, we were outcoached severely. And it's really the first game in a while that I could say that. I mean, you could point to several things in this game. The special teams continues to be a major letdown. It wasn't just the fumble by Deion Lewis. Jabril Peppers fair catching the ball like 3 times inside the 7-yard line. Like, that was inexcusable. Special teams continues to be a major letdown for this team over the last 3 weeks. Nearly cost us the 2 games before that. along with several other things. Obviously, the offense was stagnant outside of one drive, couldn't get anything established. The offensive line was atrocious, gave up 8 sacks. So there was a lot of negative things in this game. It was a major letdown, and we'll see how the New York Giants respond. But I want to get your thoughts on the game overall from the New York Giants.
Yeah, it's definitely we're not used to getting out coached, which is not a good thing. But from a team like the Cardinals who are talented, it's like it's not a surprise because this was the classic letdown spot. But me and you were, and a lot of other Giants fans were hoping that in the new Joe Judge era we wouldn't have that happen to us. But a lot of it was stacked against us. We had a quarterback on one leg essentially who wasn't really playing all that well. The offensive line was awful. Even Kevin Zeitler, who's been around forever, couldn't handle stunts. Andrew Thomas was getting beat outside. Matt Parrott, same thing. Very rough offensive line game for us. And you mentioned the special teams as well. You put a lot of good examples in there. There was also a Christian Kirk return that went for like 25, 30 yards, I think. So like the special teams, which was supposed to be a really strong suit of this team with, I think it's McGahee, the special teams coach, and Joe Judge. They're supposed to be great at it, but the special teams has been lacking the past month or so. So that's something to watch out for. And then the defense, I mean, guys on defense individually played well. Jabril Peppers, Dalvin Tomlinson had a sack in there. But even like Logan Ryan dropped an interception. I think he allowed that Dan Arnold touchdown. A guy like Julian Love missed that tackle on Kenyon Drake's run went for like 40 yards. So a lot of guys were just not playing well individually on defense, and we did get out coached in a way. But I think a lot of it was the Giants not playing well individually. You mentioned Deion Lewis fumbling on like his own 20-yard line, which was huge, a big turning point in the game, I feel like. So the Giants beat themselves in a lot of ways, but they were also out coached. It was just all in all just a really bad game for them. A lot of people are not happy with Jason Garrett. Once again, too many, short intermediate routes that are going nowhere. There were a couple deep shots in this game. Golden Tate had a couple, came down with one of them. I don't remember Darius Slayton getting a deep shot. I think Shepard might have got one where it was off his fingertips on a diving attempt. But, I mean, really, there was not much to brag about with the offense. And they kind of got away from the run game, too. I think Gallman, I wrote down, was 12 for 57 on the ground, which is 4 points something, like 7 yards per carry. He was doing well on the ground. The Giants didn't really stick with it, and they just struggled offensively all day.
Yeah, I'm going to get the true rap list in a second. The other thing I wanted to ask you brought up the Daniel Jones thing. He was clearly limited in this game. Do you? And I'm not. I try to be. I love Joe Judge. You know that. You question him playing Daniel Jones in that game. Maybe not to start, but at least keeping him in there after he looked as limited as he did as that game wore down.
There was a point in the fourth quarter where he really should have been out the game, where he was struggling to walk. But coming into the game, I said to myself, they said on the broadcast, he put Daniel Jones through the ringer in practice. He looked fine. And I think once Jones got re-injured in a way with the ankle, that's when he started to look really bad. I think the first 2.5 quarters or so, Jones actually looked okay. He definitely wasn't healthy. He was definitely 75, 80%. He was not going to run and take off, but he looked okay in the pocket. He was able to throw a football, as we know. But then once he got his ankle injured, that's when it was like, wow, this guy's actually really hampered. They should probably take him out. But I don't blame Joe Judge for playing him. He felt Daniel Jones at 75, 80%. Gives us the best chance to win. Daniel Jones himself wanted to play. So you got to do what's best for your team. You're in the middle of a playoff race. You got to go out there and play your best guy that gives you the best chance. So, yes, he should have taken him out after the second injury occurred, and maybe Joe Judge wasn't aware of it. But once we saw him on the broadcast limping around in the huddle even, that's when you're like, wow, we got to take him out. And the score was 24-7. So, you're probably not going to come back at that point anyway.
Yeah, that was my only criticism there. I'm not going to kill him for starting him because, like you said, going in, he definitely didn't have the full arsenal of weapons. We weren't using the RPO, so he was definitely limited in that way. But Joe Judge probably legitimately felt like even Daniel Jones, without being able to utilize that RPO, gave the New York Giants the best chance to win on Sunday. Then you saw Jones really hampered by the injuries that game wore along, and that's when I thought they should have pulled him. True rap list, I think, brings up a great point. This has been widely talked about by New York Giants fans. It was the second drive in the second half. I don't want to just talk about that one specific play. I want to talk about all 3 play calls. True Apples, man, thank you very much, man. Almost had a stroke after we didn't run on 3rd and 1. Yeah, so the Giants start to get some momentum, Mike. They have that really good drive. Jones scores the touchdown, and then all of a sudden you're saying to yourself, we might have something here. We might be getting back in this game after we're able to stop them, force a punt, and if we're able to get some points on that next drive, the New York Giants are right back in the game. Garrett comes out with a throw on 1st down. I don't mind throwing. You're on your own 8, but I don't mind throwing. You're losing by 2 scores. It was the play call. I mean, it was all 3-yard curl routes. The risk did not meet the reward. When you're backed up at your own 8-yard line, doesn't make much sense there to call a play like that. I recognize the offensive line wasn't blocking well. You want to get the ball out quick. Thought that was a very questionable call. Then they run on 2nd and 10. They get 9 yards with Wayne Gallman. And you're saying to yourself, you're on the 15. It's 3rd and 1. You're either doing one of two things here. You're either going to run the ball again, which is what I would have done, like Drew Rapless said, or you're going to throw a high percentage pass. Now, the question I have for you, on the passing play, Jones throws a 50-50 ball down the right sideline. However, I don't remember who the other receiver was. There was a guy with a crossing pattern. Do you think that was the primary target on that play, or do you think Jones took it upon himself to throw that 50-50 ball down the right sideline? Regardless, I think they should have run the ball.
Was this the Sterling Shepard play where he laid out for it, or no? Was this a different play?
It was the 3rd and 1 on their own 15. I don't remember who he threw it to, but it was on the right sideline. It was a 50-50 ball, 3rd and 1 on his own 15-yard line.
No, now I wish I knew, because I would you have to go back and kind of look at the defense. Were they stacking the box and all that? But if they weren't stacking the box and you could have ran for that 1 yard, then obviously that's probably the way to go. So I could imagine Jason Garrett probably called something that made no sense whatsoever. So I guess you gotta expect better from him. But yeah, I mean, you would expect to run the ball for that 1 yard, especially if there was not many linebackers in the box on that play. Yeah,
to me, and there's obviously, he didn't call a good game. I mean, I'm going to be the first to say it. This game, he called a really bad game. That, to me, was the most questionable, job he did in terms of a play call throughout that game, was that drive, because that's where the Giants were starting to build up momentum. We needed a touchdown there, and I didn't understand getting away from the run, especially after Gallman ran for 9 yards the play before. Gary, man, thank you very much. Do you guys think 75 to 80% of DJ is better than 100% of Colt? Well, we saw it last week. I don't know. I mean, I'll say DJ looked really good on that one drive. And I thought the Giants came out with a really bad game plan. Knowing that they had a 75%, 80% Daniel Jones, Mike, I think they should have run the ball more than they did. I think they should have came out with a much similar game plan than they did to Colt. And I think by the time they realized they got to start running more, they fell behind in the game. But they ran the ball a decent amount, but I thought they should have run the ball a lot more than they did.
No, I agree with you. I mean, they came out with that, it was weird because your quarterback's already hampered and they're going to come out and pass the ball more than they run. And especially with all the running success they've had in recent weeks with Alfred Morris and Wayne Gallman, it's like, why are you trying to just force the pass when you could run on a team that's like league average against the run? It's not like the Cardinals are this great run defense. They're not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the run or anything like that, or the Seahawks even, who we did well against. So it didn't make much sense to me from that standpoint. The whole game plan going into it was flawed, and I think we saw it right away. Like once the Giants were down, 13-0 or so, whatever it was, they just had no offensive identity whatsoever. Then they had the nice drive, and we figured they can build on that. And then, as we know, it's a 3-and-out after that. So after that was over, it was kind of like, yeah, I mean, we're probably going to lose this game. And I think after Kenyon Drake had that long run, I kind of realized we're probably not going to win this game. But it was definitely disappointing because they definitely should have tried to run the ball more. I would rather have you try to run the ball a lot in the beginning, realize it's not working, then go to the pass, rather than try to pass the ball out the gate with an injured quarterback and then try to run the ball later when you're already down in the score by 2 possessions.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. And the other thing that disappointed me in this game, Mike, in terms of the defense played fairly well. I mean, the defense played great in the red zone. You're going up against the best red zone offense in football, and they only scored a touchdown on 7 trips there twice. So they did a good job in the red zone. However, the defensive line in this game, we got no push at all in terms of getting pressure on Kyler Murray. That left a lot to be desired in this football game. Coming off an unbelievable game, I'm still very high on Leonard Williams. He's been great this year. They didn't do much at all in this football game in terms of generating pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. That was one of the big points in this game for the defense and why they didn't play well. And Kyler Murray's tough to get down as it is. They got him, I think, 1 or 2 times. Dalvin Tomlinson sacked him in the third quarter and to get him out of field goal range, which was nice. But the entire first half, it was just like Kyler Murray back there for 4 or 5 seconds, sometimes 6 seconds, just standing in the pocket, surveying the field, pointing to a guy to go somewhere. And it's like, where is the pass rush? What's going on here? And sometimes Patrick Graham will send 3 guys and put a lot, back in coverage, which, sometimes is a good thing. It worked against Russell Wilson last week on some occasions. But, when you're getting no pressure on a guy like Kyler Murray, you give him time to scan the field. I think Kyler Murray's a very talented passer. He's not just a rusher to me. You give him enough time to pass the ball, 5-6 seconds worth of time, he's going to find an open guy eventually. So, the Giants, once again, have to find an alpha pass rusher. Like it's hard right now because they don't have O'Shane and Lorenzo Carter and a lot of other guys they're supposed to have. You're relying on Jabal Sheard and Carter Coughlin and Cam Brown to do that job for you. But at the same time, no matter who you have, it's supposed to be next man up. You say that all the time. I mean, I'm sure Joe Judge preaches the same thing as well. When you're getting no pressure on a quarterback like a Kyler Murray or even somebody along those lines, it's like you give him 5 or 6 seconds, you're going to get torched on defense all day. And the Giants defense did well in the red zone. You did say that the goal line stand in the first drive they had was awesome. I mean, James Bradbury, great recovery to break up that pass with Keyshawn Johnson in the corner of the end zone. But outside of that, it was like they were getting no pressure whatsoever. And when you give Kyler Murray that much time, he's going to eventually hurt you.
Yeah, that's what it came down to, and yeah, the silly mistakes, man, the turnovers, the obviously the fumble by Jones, which I don't really put on the lost fumble. I don't put on him. The other two, not so good, but the lost fumble they completely whiffed on the right side. I think it was Cam Fleming. That was a huge momentum shifting play as well in this game. And the Giants are not a team that can afford to make mistakes like that and beat good football teams. And it's going to be the same thing this week against Cleveland. JD, man, thank you very much. DJ should never have started. You don't risk the franchise quarterback season over one game, especially when running is such a huge part of his success. Listen, I understand the logic there. I do. We saw it this week. He's not near the same quarterback when he's limited in terms of being able to at least be a threat with running the football, especially with the weapons that the New York Giants have. I mean, they don't have many. With Saquon Barkley out, I mean, they're very limited in terms of their weapons. And their biggest weapon a lot of times is Daniel Jones's legs. That guy, Jose, man, thank you very much. Came out with a bad game plan and no adjustments. I couldn't say it much better than that. The other thing I'll say, that guy, Jose, and Mike, offensively, the week before, they didn't come out with a good game plan the first half. Second half, they got it going, but the first half, they did nothing until such time they made some adjustments and were able to get the ground game going. And if they're going to have any chance this week, Mike, and obviously we talked about all the, and we'll see. People talk about Jason Garrett's not going to be the play caller now. It's going to be Kitchens, and some people are optimistic about that. It's the same playbook. So maybe he's different in situational play calling. But the only way they're going to win this game, Mike, they got to play a flawless game. I mean, they cannot turn the football over. They have to have great offensive line play, and the defense has to play like they did against Seattle. They have to play exactly like they did against Seattle to have any chance in this football game. And even then, with the limitations in the secondary, you're asking a lot. And this Cleveland Browns running attack is very, very good. Maybe the best in the league. I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but I haven't really dove into it. I'll probably do a preview video tomorrow. But I know they got a great offensive line. Nick Chubb is a great running back. That's got to be the game plan, Mike, on defense. We have to find a way to stop that run and, roll the dice with our secondary.
I'd imagine they're going to try and, as you mentioned before, force Baker Mayfield to beat them, but I think Baker's having a great year, and that's probably what's going to happen. I don't give the Giants much of a chance in this game. Of course, I'll root for them to win. I just don't really see how it's possible to not only just stop Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt for an entire 60 minutes, but also keep Baker Mayfield in check, who's been playing very well. I just don't see how it's possible. The Giants' offense, the offensive line has been just garbage, especially last week. I mean, it's been better the past 2 months or so, but like last week was just like, what the hell were we watching? I mean, as I mentioned before, Parrott, Thomas, Zeitler, it looked like they never played football before on some of these plays. It was terrible. So like you have that going for you. And I just don't know how you're supposed to keep a Cleveland Browns team in check for an entire 60 minutes. I think the Giants can keep this close, but the Browns, they just stick with the run the entire game. There will be chunk plays for Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt towards the third and fourth quarter when the Giants defense gets worn down. I just don't see how it's possible for the Giants offense led by Colt McCoy and a bad offensive line, assuming they play like they did on Sunday. And think about it, Cleveland's defensive ends, Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon, who has like 7.5 sacks this year now. You got to, and even Sheldon Richardson's amazing on the inside as well. So like that's a really good defensive line that we got to watch out for. So it's not going to be easy. Once again, the Giants play some really good defensive ends and a good defensive line. So it's going to be a tough ask. And I just don't see how the Giants really compete for a full 60 minutes. I expect them to play well for about a half, but like how long can you really keep up here with especially Bradbury out, Daniel Jones out? There's too much of a talent discrepancy out there. I just don't see how the Giants stick around for a full game.
Have to create turnovers. I mean, that's the only way. You have to create turnovers. Connor says, fire Garrett, hire young college coach for offensive coordinator. All right, let's talk about that real quick because that's been by the way, Punkham says it's a joke because people called me a coward. People called me a coward on my live stream this week, by the way. I don't even know why he did it. Either because I wasn't coming out too strongly against Daniel Jones or I wasn't coming out too strongly for him. I'm kind of still taking the same approach where he hasn't progressed as much as I would have liked this year. but I think we're going to give him a third year. I'm going to hope that it gets better, and I get called a coward for that. So he's jokingly calling you a coward. As far as fire Garrett, hire Young, let's talk about that. Let's talk about some of the prospects. If that were to happen, and I don't know if it will. I've been on record as saying that I do not like the idea of 3 systems in 3 years, but the way that Jones has played in this scheme, even though I don't think it's all Garrett's fault, I look at the Saquon Barkley injury going down. That definitely changed the whole complexion of this offense in terms of the play calling after week 1. Things changed there. They don't have great weapons. Like you said, the offensive line, especially early on in the year, gave the offense limitations in terms of the way that they could call plays. But I'm not saying Garrett's a great play caller. And if they decide to do that, I'm gonna roll with Judge. Judge brings in his guy here. But who's some of the OCs you could see either the New York Giants promoting from within the team and potentially some guys that they could bring from the outside?
I mean, the clear answer, of course, is Freddie Kitchens with the whole Mississippi State connection with Joe Judge. And I know that Freddie Kitchens, he has kind of a bad rep because of what happened in Cleveland. But you think about it, when Kitchens took over for Todd Haley in 2018, Baker Mayfield started playing out of his mind. So he really did a lot of good things for him. There was a lot more quick passes, and the Browns had a bad offensive line in 2018. So, if he took over for the Giants and implemented more RPOs, which is something that he is known for when he was offense coordinator for the Browns, it could definitely play to Daniel Jones' strengths. And I feel like with the Joe Judge relationship he's had in the past, I tweeted this before, don't rule out Freddie Kitchens as a possible offensive coordinator for the Giants in 2021. And it would be better than bringing in a completely new guy, because at least, Freddie Kitchens has watched Daniel Jones very closely for a full year now. So, at least we'll have that familiarity. Outside of him, I don't know who there is. I mean, the hot name is Joe Brady, but he's now an offensive coordinator for the Panthers. So it's why would he make a lateral move going from the Panthers to the Giants? I mean, I don't know what other names are out there. If they fire Garrett, of course, I'll look into it. But I really don't know. I mean, Bieniemy, of course, but that's a head coaching job.
Yeah,
so to promote, maybe they bring Pat Shurmur back for offensive coordinator if he gets fired. I have no idea what they're going to go with, because a lot of it is these guys want to be head coaches. No one's going to make a lateral move and be an offensive coordinator elsewhere.
Yeah, the other guy on the staff that I brought up is Szaplinski, the quarterback coach.
Yeah.
I think he's a possibility if they feel like he could be an offensive coordinator. But Kitchens makes the most sense on the staff, and I think you're seeing that this week. He's the guy that's stepping in and calling the plays with Garrett out. So if you were going to make a change, whether you fire Garrett or whether Garrett takes a job, maybe Garrett gets a head coaching job in college. Maybe he gets an interview to be a head coach and somebody, takes a shot at, who knows. But if there is a change there, if it's on the staff, I would say Kitchens is clearly the favorite. Like you said, he had success with that's why he got the head coaching job in Cleveland after 2018. So he had success with Baker Mayfield. We'll see. We'll see the type of offense that he runs. At least he's got some familiarity with Daniel Jones. In terms of from the outside, and I'm gonna give Clapback Sports credit for this. When I was on their podcast, they brought up a suggestion that I think makes sense, and I never really thought about him. O'Shea, I think his name's Chad O'Shea. He was the offensive coordinator with the Miami Dolphins in 2019. We all know that the Giants have taken a ton of those guys. He was the offensive coordinator with Flores. He coached in New England before that with Joe Judge. He's now I don't know his exact title with the Browns this year. He's not the OC. He's maybe the assistant OC, whatever it is. But he's with the Browns this year. He's a guy from the outside that I think could make a lot of sense because of his ties to the coaching staff with Joe Judge. So that's a name maybe to keep an eye out on. But we'll see how it all plays out. But right now, it seems like a lot of Giants fans are off the Jason Garrett train for sure. And a lot of Giants fans have been off it for a while.
My concern is, though, with O'Shea, wasn't he fired after 1 year with the Dolphins? And we think Brian Flores is a good head coach. So wouldn't he know if O'Shea was the guy or not? Why would you fire him after 1 year? That's the concern I would have.
Flores also demoted Patrick Graham.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. That's a good point.
He took away his play calling. And he also was okay with us taking Szaplinski. I'm not saying that that's definitely the guy. It's just a name that I think has attachments and could make sense. I'm sure there's several others. Like you said, if it happens in the offseason, I'm sure we'll be doing videos speculating of what guys they could potentially bring in. There you go. DJ Smooth says Arthur Smith, the Titans offensive coordinator. See, that's the thing, though, Mike. Like you said, it's going to be hard to find guys on lateral moves unless it's like a promotion. Kind of like it was for Patrick Graham. Patrick Graham, even though he had the title of defensive coordinator, wasn't the play caller. Brian Flores took that away from him. He revoked that. So if you find an OC that doesn't necessarily call the plays, maybe he looks at it like that as as a move up. But I think it's going to be hard to get a lateral move in terms of somebody that's already an offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Yeah, I just don't get if I'm this Arthur Smith guy, why am I leaving? Brian Tannehill's been established, AJ Brown, Corey Davis, Derrick Henry, a pretty good offensive line, when Luan gets back next year, hopefully. I just don't know why I would make that move personally. Like, I don't know if he's from the area or what, but like you're looking at the rosters, I just don't know why even go from that situation to what the Giants have going on right now.
That's the other thing. Guys that are offensive coordinators, you're not going to leave one situation to go to potentially a worse one,
Yeah.
because you're eventually, the hope is more than likely trying to become a head coach. So if you feel like you're in a good situation with Tennessee, why would you leave that situation?
Right.
That guy, Jose, man, thank you very much. Think Judge will work close with the OC after Sunday. Here's what because I think I'm gonna tell you what I know. He says he doesn't step on toes, and I know he says he lets the coaches coach. But I think Joe Judge has shown you, Mike, throughout this year. That's why I even though the play calling may not be exactly in terms of the passing, the routes and everything may not be on Judge, but I think this is the type of offense Judge wanted going into this year. Judge wanted a run heavy approach. That's my opinion. He's shown that when he doesn't like something, he'll fire the guy and he steps in and he tries to correct things. You haven't seen him step in and call plays. So I think he's kind of in lockstep in terms of the offensive philosophy for this year's team with the New York Giants. It's just the route concepts that I think a lot of people are against. But yeah, I would think Joe Judge would be heavily involved, especially with Garrett out this week, in the offensive game plan for the New York Giants.
Yeah, as you said, when it's a backup, basically offensive coordinator or play caller, you would think that Joe Judge would probably have his fingerprints more on this game plan than a guy like Jason Garrett, because I'm sure, based on Jason Garrett doing this longer than Freddie Kitchens has, he probably has more confidence that Jason Garrett knows what he's doing, can feel the game flow and all that, and call the right plays. But a guy like Freddie Kitchens, who's now the tight ends coach and now is going to be calling plays, I think Joe Judge will be more influenced. And as you said, he won't call specific plays, but he'll kind of tell Freddie Kitchens, this is what I want here, this is what I want there. And they'll probably be more Joe Judge influenced play call types rather than just relying on the offensive coordinator himself.
Yeah, we'll see. But I definitely think Joe Judge has his hands all over this football team. I don't think that he's just sitting back and doing nothing. If he sees something he doesn't like, he definitely, I think he's letting the coaches know. You saw it firsthand with Mark Colombo. And we'll see what happens at the end of the year. But that's obviously going to be the two biggest question marks for this team at the end of the year are going to be the offensive coordinator and the general manager. I think, and maybe if Patrick Graham gets a head coaching job. But outside of that, I think it's going to be status quo. I think probably most of the primetime players are coming back. We'll see. And, if they bring in a new GM, then that maybe opens up the question mark for the quarterback. But I'm definitely leaning that Daniel Jones will be the quarterback in 2021. But we'll see how it plays out. But, obviously, big challenge this week, Mike. And then when we were talking before we went live about the playoff picture, and I'm going to be honest. If Washington wins this week, I don't think we're making the play, no matter what. Like, even if we win this week and Washington wins this week, I think it's going to be tough sledding for us to make the playoffs. We need Washington to lose to Seattle this week, and we have to get a W. If that happens, yeah, we got a chance. But it's going to be tough. I'm going to be honest. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, if we win this week and they lose, then we're all of a sudden right back in first place. I just think being realistic about it with a backup quarterback, I don't see us winning this week, and James Bradbury not being there. I think Baltimore has kind of found their groove recently. I don't see us beating them. I think 1-2 is the best case scenario for the Giants looking forward, if I'm being honest. And then you have Washington, who has somewhat of an easier schedule. Maybe they go 0-3 because it's not the easiest schedule in the world. They don't have the Jets on there or something, or the Jaguars. But, I still feel like Washington's a hot team right now. They're probably going to at least go 1-2 as well. So if everything goes that way, the Giants would probably miss out on the playoffs, unfortunately. But I just don't see a way we beat the Browns or Ravens. They could beat the Cowboys, of course. I just don't really see the Washington football team going 0-3 the rest of the way.
Another guy I want to bring up to you, and I don't know if you got an opportunity to watch the game. I got to see the highlights. I was so pissed off about the Giant game after. I didn't even watch it, but I went back and watched the highlights. Did you get an opportunity to check out Jalen Hurts? What did you think about him with the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, I didn't watch much of that game, honestly. I feel like that game wasn't on Red Zone as much, but I don't know. He definitely brought a different element to their team. He definitely brought a rushing approach, a guy that had a more elusive ability in the pocket than Carson Wentz does, and was just making quicker decisions. So, I mean, they have that going for him. It always scares me, though, when a team gets a new quarterback or a quarterback upgrade, possibly, that they start to go on a run. I don't fear the Eagles too much, but, I don't know what their schedule is at the end of the year, but it definitely is a little concerning because they just beat the Saints, who are possibly the best team in the entire NFC see. So it's like, that's a very impressive win. Miles Sanders running the ball like crazy. So I'm like, they might be a team to fear now, but we don't play them again. I think they do play Washington though, which is probably a positive for us. So if he's playing well and can beat Washington, then that's definitely a favor done for us.
Yeah, I think they play Green Bay this week, and then they play the Cowboys and the Eagles the last 2 games.
Right.
So we'll see. DJ Smooth, man, thank you very much, man. He says, let's get Josh McDaniels from Belichick, and our team next year will be the Titans offense. Why not Jones and Barkley? Well, DJ, I get where you're going, but it's the same thing. Why would Josh McDaniels has been with Belichick for years, and he has such a good connection with the Patriots to begin with. When he went out and got a head coaching job and he failed in Denver, the Patriots brought him back. Why would Josh McDaniels ever leave to coach the same position that he's coaching now with the New England Patriots? If McDaniels is leaving, it's going to be a head coach. It's not going to be an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, you would think that the plan there maybe is for McDaniels to one day be the head coach once Bill Belichick's finally done coaching, but they've been loyal to him in the past as well, McDaniels, even when he took that Colts coaching job and then came back, and he mentioned the Denver thing in the past. So I just don't see a reason he would leave. I know that Cam Newton right now is not the best option at quarterback, and they don't have much going for them on offense, but for how loyal that organization's been to him, I just don't see a reason he would leave.
Yeah, I see Anthony Rivardo's in. What's going on, Anthony, man? He was on my channel Saturday. Everybody was asking him to twerk, and it was
that's an odd one.
Yeah, and Steve Evans says you got to have hope in us, Steve, man. Hey, listen, man. I go into it any given Sunday, next man up. I'm gonna go in there thinking we could win. I'm not gonna pick us. I'm gonna be the first to tell you, and maybe that'll work. I didn't pick us against Seattle. But you got a puncher's chance. We got a coach we believe in. Maybe they come out with a great game plan. Maybe they shock the world. Maybe Cleveland takes us lightly, coming off a short rest. Who knows? Maybe they're hungover from a depressing loss against the Baltimore Ravens, and maybe we surprise them at least to start the game and give ourselves an opportunity. But it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to tell you guys it is. We're an underdog for a reason. Cleveland's a good football team. They're 9-4. We're limited. We're with our backup quarterback. We're missing our best player on defense. So it's not going to be easy. I do think, though, Mike, I don't think we'll come out of sloppies this week. That I could say pretty confidently. I think the Giants will come out and they'll put forth a good effort. When they've had disappointing efforts in the past this year, they've come back and they've played a fundamentally sound football game. I expect them to do that this week. I don't think they're going to look as sloppy on special teams. I don't think the offensive line gets embarrassed as much as it did last week. I do think they put forth a better effort this week.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think there's no way the coaching comes out that flat twice in a row. I just think the only reason the Giants will lose this game is because of the talent differential out there. I just think the Browns right now are healthier and they're going to have the better roster out there, and eventually usually talent wins out. So, I just don't really see a way, as I mentioned, the Giants stick around for a full game. I think they'll be close at halftime. I just don't really see the Giants sticking around for the entire second half.
It's fair. Cleveland's a really good team. And you brought up Baker Mayfield. Joe Judge this week talked about Baker Mayfield, and he was very complimentary. He had a really funny quote. He said something like, he's so competitive he would find a way to win freeze tag in a phone booth or something like that. He used the F word too. He dropped an F bomb.
Yeah.
Talking about Baker Mayfield and how much he likes him and how he's a competitor. Really was complimentary about Baker Mayfield. And what I'll say about Mayfield this year, I'm not the biggest Mayfield guy. I don't like what he said about, New York Giants fans last year. I think he's a little brash. I think he's a little bit too outspoken for me, a little too cocky. But I'm going to tell you what, he's backing it up this year. Granted, he's got a great support system. He's got a great offensive line. Stefanski's a great play caller. That definitely helps him. But yeah, he's had a really good year, especially as the years kind of progressed. You saw him struggle a little bit at the beginning of the year. Maybe some of it due to the new scheme, learning it, and it takes a couple of weeks to get going. The other thing, I know you're a big Beckham guy. Is it possible, once Beckham went down, he didn't feel like he had to force the ball to Odell Beckham, and that actually helped him as a quarterback?
Yeah, based on the numbers, you look at it, Baker's been a lot better since Odell's been out, and I think that's something that maybe Eli Manning went through at one point as well. Like when you have a guy who is a top 5 talent, even when the Giants had him top 3, at wide receiver, you kind of have to look his way. And these guys are kind of divas sometimes. They want to be involved in the game plan. And Odell has said he wants to win, but he also doesn't want to leave the field with no catches. Like, he wants to be involved in a winning effort. So Baker having that freedom to just look everywhere he wants around the field, scan the field, and not worry about a particular guy and look for who's open, I think it helps him a lot. We're definitely seeing that right now. So I know it's stupid to say that sometimes, like, you take Beckham off the Browns, maybe the offense runs better, but it could definitely be true. He's very talented, but when you're force feeding targets somewhere, sometimes it hurts you. And I think Baker Mayfield's been a victim of that at some points as well.
Yeah. Steve, man, thank you very much. Make sure you have the hoodie on. And Steve, you know the hoodie will be on Sunday. Hoodie's taking a little break this week. The hoodie needs to recoup and get the momentum going back on. But you know I'll have it on as the game's getting closer, Steve. DJ Smooth, man, thank you very much, man. If we get pick 10, Zach Wilson is there. Take him. You're a big Wilson guy, right? If I remember correctly.
No, I'm a Trey Lance guy. I don't know how I feel about Wilson.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Trey Lance.
I have Wilson, like, I look at Wilson as I put today in a group chat as like 80% of Kyler Murray. Like, they have that same kind of rushing ability. He's not as athletic as Kyler Murray is, and I don't think has the arm talent. He does have a good arm though, Zach Wilson. I will say there's a lot of things I like about him, and he might fit a certain system very nicely. But I don't know. I just don't really know if the Giants would be able to take that risk and taking him at 10 overall. Like, once again, we talk about in the past, you have to be completely sold on a guy. And to get Zach Wilson 10th overall, A, does he fall there? And B, do the Giants, front office, whether it's Gettleman or some other GM, do they really feel he's the guy to take 10th overall and give up on Daniel Jones after 2 years? It's definitely hard to see that happening.
I'd be very surprised. The only way I honestly saw us taking a quarterback was if we finished in like the top 3. And even then, I didn't necessarily know we were taking one, but it was a possibility there. Where we're going to be picked, I'd be very surprised. But you never know if we bring in a new GM. Jordan Renan, man, what's going on? He says, for all the Jones fans, we need Jacoby Brissett next season. What's going on, Jordan, by the way? He says, in case Jones is the same 4 games into 2021, can't afford to lose this season. Jordan, I've been very outspoken about Jacoby Brissett, Mike. And I think we've talked about him in the past as a guy that I think they potentially looking to bring in. I think he's a perfect fit. I really do. With all the connections he has to this coaching staff, the quarterback coach, Joe Judge, he's a veteran. He's a guy that I think you could trust if Jones does struggle or gets hurt 4 or 5 games into the season, that could step in and at least keep you competitive in these football games next year. And I think they should bring in a more experienced vet going into next year. I'm not saying to start, but if Jones – the other thing I'll say, Mike, the thing that really concerns me about Daniel Jones right now, everybody talks about the progression, the stats. And I think it's fair to point to several factors. Some of it definitely being Jones. I'm not going to say Jones doesn't take any fault for this. He definitely does. Saquon Barkley being out definitely doesn't help him. You look at his career numbers. I posted on Twitter, 23 touchdowns, 8 picks when Saquon plays in 10 games, 9 touchdowns, 13 picks when he doesn't play in 14 games. And even last year in the scheme with Shermer, he had 3 touchdowns and 6 picks in 3 games when Barkley didn't play, 21 touchdowns, 6 picks when he did. So Barkley has definitely something to do, in my opinion, with some of the regression of Daniel Jones this year. The new scheme not helping him. There's no doubt about it. And he doesn't have weapons. So I get all of that. But the thing I worry about more so than anything, this guy seems to have an injury problem. This is now 2 years in a row where he's going to miss at least 2 games. And that is not a good habit to have if you're a quarterback in the NFL. I know we took Eli Manning for granted because he never got hurt. But you don't want a quarterback that's going to miss 2 or 3 games every year. That's something that I hope gets better if he's going to be the quarterback going forward.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree about Jacoby Brissett. I think he'd be the perfect guy. He's good enough to the point where he can win you games, but not good enough to the point where he's like an actual threat. I feel like to Daniel Jones, because it's Daniel Jones' job regardless, assuming he's back next year. I just think with a defense as good as the Giants and a team that maybe gets a wide receiver 1 over the offseason and like actually has a really good roster, maybe the Giants would be a quarterback away. And it would be a shame next year if Daniel Jones once again doesn't play well and the Giants' only problem on the roster would be the quarterback. So why not give yourself the insurance of getting you a guy like Jacoby Brissett, who's above average at quarterback? And, if Daniel Jones is that bad, which hopefully he's not, but if he is, at least you have that insurance of putting in another quarterback behind him that could start winning you games. So I think having that guy there, of course, depending on how much he would cost, because you don't want to pay $15 million a year to a backup quarterback, but at a reasonable price, if you can get Brissett, I say why not? I think it'd be a great move.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he won't cost anything, but I don't think he's going to command, $15 million. I think you'd be able to get him I don't know. We won't know until the offseason, but that's a guy I have my eye on. Anthony, man, thank you so much, man. He says, why doesn't the chat beg MiketooNice to twerk like they begged me? Anyway, Rob Galladay, Smith, or Jalen Waddle in the offseason. Okay, so he's saying free agency or draft, basically, with the wide receiver. Allen Robinson or Galladay, or do you go with Smith or Waddle in the draft? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe we're even picking higher, and we're able to get the top receiver in this year's draft. We're gonna have to wait and see how it all plays out. But I am gonna lean that we're not gonna get a wide receiver in free agency of that caliber, because I think we're gonna use a lot of our money to bring back the pending free agents on our roster on the defensive side. I would love to get Galladay or Allen Robinson. That's exactly what we need in this offense. But I think we're gonna spend a lot of our money, Mike, that we have to shore up this defense and make sure we keep it intact.
Yeah, I can agree. I think if they can get an A-Rob or Galladay at the right price, then of course you do it. But even Galladay has missed a lot of games this year. Honestly, he hasn't played in almost 2 months now. So it's definitely a concern with his injury history. I would give the bag to Allen Robinson. I think he's that good. He got injured in 2017 with the ACL, but since then it's been pretty healthy. He's on the injury report. He's banged up, a lot, but at the same time, he does play, puts up numbers. He's great. And you mentioned Corey Davis in the past, who was also a great option if they can get him at the right price. As for the college receivers, I haven't watched them yet. Can't really give an opinion yet, but I think in a couple months I'll probably be there. But, I think it depends on the contract. If they can get these guys at a good price, then why not? But I think drafting a wide receiver in the first round is not necessarily something you want to do when there's other needs on this roster, like, a pass rusher or a cornerback number 2. That's, probably a more important position. But if the value meets the need, then maybe the Giants do take a wide receiver in the draft.
Definitely could. It's starting to look more and more likely that's a first round possibility, depending on where we're picking. By the way, I want to say again, I don't say it enough. Thank you to everybody for being here. Thank you guys for all the support that you guys always show on the channel. And if you guys have not done so, we're going to be doing this next week on Mike's channel. Please go over there, check out MiketooNice. We're going to be doing that channel next week. This on the channel next week, and I'm sure we'll be doing this throughout the season, talking about trade rumors and draft and everything else. So make sure you go over there, check him out, check out his channel, and Mike, of course, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Jay Moda says, do you guys think we should make a run at Matt Stafford? That's been a popular name, Mike. I've been getting by a lot of my subscribers. We are one draft away and off season away from being a real contender. Jones is holding us back. I don't know Stafford's contract off the top of my head, but what I'll say to that, Mike, if I am going to make a move at the quarterback position, I'm drafting one. I'm not trading for one. I'm not signing one in terms of, top tier money. In the NFL, the way you win Super Bowls, at least in my opinion, is when you can get that quarterback on the rookie contract. Matt Stafford's now probably 32, 33.
Yep.
And if Detroit was moving on, he already makes a good amount of money. I'm not doing that. I'm not giving up draft assets to bring in a quarterback when we need as many as we possibly could have. And I don't think we're a Matt Stafford away from winning a Super Bowl. I just don't. I'm being honest. Matt Stafford has had talent on Detroit before. He's never won a playoff game. So I just don't. For me, it doesn't add up.
Yeah, I love Matt Stafford. I'm a big Stafford guy, but even for someone like me who loves him, the contract is a big thing. It's hard to get out of for another 2 years, I believe. And also the fact that he's been injured the past 3 years now. Like, he's questionable to play this week with a rib injury. I think he might have had a thumb ligament injury at some point this year as well. And the past 2 years before this, in 18-19, it was back injuries for him. I think he missed a lot of time last year. He missed half the year. Then the year before that, played like with a broken back. So his injury history on top of the contract makes it unattractive. I think Matt Stafford's had an underappreciated NFL career. I just don't think for a team like the Giants, it makes a lot of sense.
I'm a big fan of Stafford. I think Stafford is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in football because of the team that he played for, and because they never really helped him out over there. If he was with a team like New England, he's probably has much more playoff success. Let's put it that way. So I'm with you on that. I think Stafford's probably a fringe top 10 quarterback throughout the majority of his career. Deception Man, thank you very much. He says, what's up, gentlemen? Have either of you looked at wide receiver? I have not. Darden in the draft. Do you think he could fall to us and could be our number one? Deception, to be honest, I have not done a ton of research on the draft yet. I've looked at a couple, the top guys, but I have not done a ton of research on the draft yet, because normally we would have, Mike, but this year we were playing meaningful football with a month to play. So that's something, you stick around both our channels. We're going to be doing a lot of draft research within a month. So, but right now it's a little premature for me to be looking into all these prospects. Mr. Smooth, thank you very much, man. Jimmy G could be the backup. Same thing again, Mike. I mean, first off, the guy makes a ton of money. And if you're bringing him in here, he's not going to be the backup. He's going to be the starter with what he makes. But
Yeah.
no, it's the same thing. It doesn't add up for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, once again, I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I do like Stafford more. It's just he's injured. He's making too much money. I just, you have to give up assets to get him probably. I just don't see why. And I feel like he's probably a little better than Daniel Jones right now, but it's not even to the point where it's worth making that move. You might as well just see what you have with Jones at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Rudy, I see Rudy's in here. By the way, all my members, in case you didn't see it in my community notes, I am going to have a member stream later tonight as well. Supposed to have that Monday. Things got backed up. So I'm going to have that about 8:30, 8:45. I know Rudy's a member, so be on the lookout for that. He says, hey, guys, how are athletes at fault for their injuries? I'm going to be honest, Mike. I saw a lot of people, not a lot, but I saw some people bashing Daniel Jones, calling him selfish for putting himself in that game and not sitting out for the betterment of the team. And to me, that makes no sense. If you're, first off, I'm crediting the guys on my team for putting their life, they're putting their well-being in terms of their health on the line to try to go out there and win, because he felt like as a competitor, he gives this team the best chance to win. If you're going to criticize anybody, it's Joe Judge and the coaching staff for not evaluating him and seeing, okay, he doesn't give us the best chance to win. Let's start Colt McCoy this week. But if you're a competitor, if you're a professional athlete, you're not going to raise your hand when you're 75, 80% and say, yeah, I can't play. Sit me out. So I didn't get that at all.
No, yeah, you don't want players like that. Like you gotta, if you can play, you're playing. I think it's the opposite. I think he's unselfish for trying to play and be there for his team and help them in the midst of a playoff race. I don't really see how you could blame the player. The only time I would blame a player for an injury is when like they do it when they're celebrating or something stupid like that, or like just unnecessarily like jump high in the end zone when they're about to score a long touchdown. Like that's the one time you can blame a player, because that's stuff you don't have to do. When you're already injured from being in the game and you're just trying to play through an injury, I don't see how you can call the player selfish for that, because Daniel Jones, I think, as we all know, gives the team the best chance to win. He's trying to win games for the Giants, and I don't see how it's selfish, honestly.
Yeah, it made no sense to me. DJ Smoove says we need to put pressure on Jones next season, get a quarterback. Well, that's what we're saying with Brissett, DJ Smoove. I think I think he's a credible backup. He's a guy that won't cost you as much as some of the other suggestions that have been thrown out. You're not going to have to give up any draft assets to get him. He's a free agent. He's got ties to the coaching staff. I think that's a perfect example of a potential backup that we could look at. Jordan, he says, after Carson Wentz, I think it's time for the quarterback market to change. A lot of quarterbacks are and will get overpaid. NFL CBA needs to do something about it. I've talked about this in the past, Mike, and first off, it's never going to change because the quarterback's the most important position. They're always going to get paid the most. They chew up 15 to 20% of your cap, depending on, the quarterback. And obviously the outside of this year, the cap's always going up. But one suggestion some of my subs have brought up to me that I don't think it'll ever happen, but I think it makes sense, is like a cap by position, where you designate a quarterback could only take up 10% of your team's cap, and that's how you designate it. So that's possible. I don't think it'll ever happen, though. I think it only goes up. The demand for quarterbacks are too important, Mike. It's not going to change.
Yeah, positional value, right? I mean, I feel like we're never going to be in a world where the quarterback position is not making the most in football. I think based on what we've seen from Carson Wentz and even Jared Goff, teams have to wait out more, wait to the very last moment of when they want to pay these quarterbacks. Because sometimes we see a team pay a quarterback prematurely, where they can definitely put them on the franchise tag 2 times and see more. Because like with Carson Wentz, he played like an MVP one year, 18-19, played at a very high level. Maybe we didn't see enough yet. I don't know. And then they could have waited another year possibly and franchise tagged them, and maybe, let's say Carson Wentz didn't have the big contract yet. Now the Eagles could have let him walk and not have to give him all that money. And same thing with Jared Goff, who Jared Goff's okay, but I don't think I would pay him the amount of money the Rams are paying him. But I think teams now just have to be a lot more cautious about the way they're paying these guys. When you have a no-brainer, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, you pay them. There's no doubt about it. But when you're on the fence about a Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, you might have to wait that out as long as possible. And I think the Washington football team did a really good job with that with Kirk Cousins. They franchise tagged him twice, I believe, right? And then they gave him they let him go to the Vikings. I think that's the best way to do it.
Washington was widely criticized for that. And I understand both ways, by the way, Mike. I understand paying these guys before waiting till the end because the market only goes up. So if you wait the extra 2 years, in the end, you're going to end up paying that guy more per year if you're going to end up giving him that second deal. So I understand why they make the commitment earlier before the conclusion of that contract. But by the same token, like you said, especially when you got guys with injury history like Carson Wentz, you might want to think it over. But I completely agree with you on Washington. Washington got bashed for that. They said they should have kept Cousins. Why did you franchise guy the 2 years? It was the right decision. I know that Washington didn't end up having a good football team, and they got worse because of that. But if they keep Cousins, they would have been stuck in mediocrity for years. You'd be paying a guy on a 5-year deal for, $35 million a year, whatever it would have been, and you would have been stuck in mediocrity for years because Cousins is not the type of quarterback that could elevate a football team. And in my opinion, Mike, and it's my opinion with Daniel Jones, and I don't know yet. We'll see. Maybe he takes a monumental leap next year when he gets the things that people feel like he needs. But if Daniel Jones is not going to be a quarterback that is going to elevate a football team, you can't extend him. That's my take on the quarterback position. Because of the money that they make, you have to be a damn near close to a top 5 quarterback in the league to warrant that type of percentage of the cap going against the cap towards paying towards one player, because you have to be able to elevate the team. You're at a significant disadvantage when you're making 15 to 20% of the cap at one position.
Yeah, I think NYG Daily had a great tweet about this. Like, you don't learn about a quarterback until you pay them a lot of money. They're taking up 20% of your cap and see what type of deficiencies they mask on your team. Like, once you pay a quarterback all that money, you all of a sudden don't have a great right tackle or left tackle. You all of a sudden don't have this great defense to backpack you in a way. You need to be better. You need to elevate players around you. So once you're making all that money, can you still play at a level high enough where you can make all this money, but still find ways to win games for your team? If you're not that type of quarterback, then you don't earn that contract, in my opinion. So that's pretty much the way teams have to look at it.
Yeah. And Shot, what's going on, buddy? He says Toppin for KD. Oh, I'm not trading. I love Toppin. Knicks would say
you wouldn't
no.
Do that?
I'd be full of shit if I said no, but I love Toppin.
Yeah,
anyway, support you guys. Scared of Corey Davis because A.J. Brown makes it better. A-Rob, KG franchise, so we'll have to draft. We'll see. I mean, there's a good chance they will be franchised. I agree with that. And even if they're not, there's a good chance we're not going to have the money to pay him because we're going to have to pay like I said earlier, our defensive players. Toppin's obviously on the rookie deal. KD, we'll see. He did look a little. I watched the game last night, or I think it was last night. He did look a little ginger,
rusty.
Yeah. But he's coming back. And the thing with KD, he's not the type of player that needs unbelievable athleticism. He's more of a he's a 6'11" guy that could step out and shoot the three, kind of like Dirk Nowitzki. So
I'll tell you, man, as a Nets fan, I am riding high right now. You cannot take me off cloud 9. I feel great. We're a championship contender. Kyrie looked amazing as well. You cannot talk me down for the Nets right now. But
if you're a Nets fan, you should be excited. But I'm gonna tell you what, as a Knicks fan, I'm excited. And I don't want to get into basketball too much, but I like where we're headed. I like the young talent on the team. I think Toppin's exciting. I think RJ Barrett definitely looks like he's matured and gotten better this preseason. It's going to come down to whether or not we could get another good player. Go ahead.
Can I ask you a Knicks question real quick? Just one Knicks question. I think they benched Mitchell Robinson for Noel, right, to start the game. Did you feel good about that or no? Because I feel like why not play Mitchell Robinson to start?
Here's what I'm going to say about Mitchell Robinson. And Mitchell Robinson is one of my favorite players on the team. He's a guy that has a history of getting into foul trouble early in games. He gets a lot of ticky-tack fouls. So I think it's valuable to have him at the end of the game for his defensive presence and everything else. So as long as he's getting his 28 to 30 minutes, but they feel like maybe that's going to give him the best opportunity to play in crunch time when the game matters, I'm not necessarily against that if he's not in the starting lineup, as long as he's getting his necessary minutes to progress and he's in the game when it matters. I think Mitchell Robinson is definitely a big part of the future. Nick, man, thank you very much. He says, Tana, this Quickly kid is our future. I like Quickly a lot. I like Quickly. I'm not going to say he's a starting future point guard, but I love the pick when the Knicks made it. He's a 93% free throw shooter, something the Knicks desperately needed. They needed a shooter. I like the Quickly pickup. We're getting all the celebrities today. We got Mike Francesa. Who else do we have? Somebody, Jordan Ronan. Yeah, we're doing good today.
Anthony Rivardo.
Anthony Rivardo, big celebrity. But Mike, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Please subscribe to MiketooNice as well. He says it's 2021. Giants go 8-8, but Jones continues to regress, and the backup starts. Are you going to be willing to move up in the draft by sending multiple future first? To me, Mike, that's an impossible question for me to answer because I don't know the quarterbacks in that draft class. Is there a quarterback worth trading up for? You don't just trade the trade. But yeah, absolutely. If there is a quarterback, if Daniel Jones does not have significant improvement next year and he regresses or stays the same, and there's a quarterback worth trading up for, you do it. If that answers your question, Mike. But like I said in this draft, you can't force a quarterback pick and you can't force a trade to get a quarterback because if you make a trade and the guy turns out to be a mediocre quarterback, not only did you bring in another guy that's mediocre, you also gave away draft capital to do it. So he has to be worth trading up for.
I don't know who the quarterbacks would be, but if I felt the way about a quarterback the way I felt about like Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield, I probably would trade a first and a next year first to get that guy if they had to. But when you're kind of on the fence about, I don't know if this guy is the real franchise, real deal or not, you can't trade multiple first round picks to do that. You have to have a very strong hunch about that guy being a franchise quarterback for a long time, or else that's just a very bad trade looking back on it.
Yeah. And Mike, again, thank you so much. It's just a thought because I get the desire to give Jones another year. But if the Giants like a quarterback this year more than Jones, do you risk the future chaos? I mean, that's the thing, Mike. I mean, here's the thing, man. If you do that, like we always say, Mike, to me, he can't just be like you. This is just my opinion. Maybe Mike differs. He can't just be what you if I'm Gettleman and name a quarterback, Mike, that could be there at 10. Just first name that pops to your head.
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson. If I'm Gettleman and I go into the draft and I feel Zach Wilson is a little bit better than Daniel Jones, I don't make the pick. He's got to be a no-doubter. He's got to be a guy that I know in my heart is my guy. He's a franchise guy. Otherwise, I continue to build this team. I get a wide receiver. Whatever it is, I try to fix the other holes on this roster. I don't just draft a quarterback to draft a quarterback. That's just my opinion. And, I wait another year, and if Daniel Jones does not progress when I improve this team around him, that's when I either go via free agency to replace him at the quarterback position, or I look into the draft, depending on who's available.
Yeah, that's well said. The way I look at it is if, the Giants had the 10th pick and I saw that, because I'm assuming that Lawrence is gone, I'm assuming that Fields is gone, I'm assuming that probably even Zach Wilson's gone. Like, if you have a chance at Trey Lance, I might make that pick. That's the one guy I think that's possible that could fall to 10. I don't see it happening, but it's possible. I think that's a pick I would be willing to make because I just see him as having crazy high upside and a lot of tools you can work with. If you have the right coaching, that I can see. But yeah, if you're like in the point and the mindset what you just said, where you think that the draft prospect is a little better than Daniel Jones, you don't make that pick. You don't forget, you don't throw away a 2019 6th overall pick for a guy that's a little better. Like, you have to think he's significantly better or has the outlook, and you see in the future him being a much better quarterback than Daniel Jones. If you don't see that happening, then you're basically just wasting 2 first-round picks at that point. There's no point in doing that.
Can't do it. Everybody brings up Arizona, but Arizona viewed Kyler Murray as an elite quarterback and a guy that fit the scheme perfectly. DJ Smooth, man, thank you very much. He says, we need a special quarterback. Giants fans are sick and tired of Eli 2.0. DJ, I love you, DJ Smooth. I would love Eli 2.0. Eli won us 2 Super Bowls. I wanted Eli 2.0. We need our Mahomes, period. Mike, that's one thing I don't get about the fan base. I understand the younger fans that only saw Eli for the last 3 years and that's all they know about him. Eli Manning is the greatest quarterback in the history of the franchise. Eli Manning played every single game. You could rely on him every single Sunday. He won us 2 Super Bowls. Sign me up right now, Mike, for Eli 2.0.
Yeah, right. I mean, if you can give me the playoff success that Eli had, I'll take it. But when you look at Eli from a regular season perspective, he wasn't the best quarterback. I get it. So maybe you do want to shoot higher, and everyone does want the next Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers. But, I'm kind of with this person in a way because I think I would rather take a shot on the crazy high upside quarterback. That's just the way I look at it because, we went over this in the past and in many other episodes. It's tough to win a Super Bowl when you don't have a top 5 quarterback in football. I think we all know that. It's been done before, like the 2015 Broncos and other teams, but it's very tough to do so. So I feel like you really put yourself in a very, elite, in the elite section of teams that are able to win a Super Bowl when you have the elite quarterback. So yes, having an Eli Manning of a 15-year span winning 2 Super Bowls, we'll sign up for that any day. I just would rather shoot higher. So I kind of get where the person's coming from, but I also get where you're coming from because Eli Manning was the Iron Man there every game, had all the playoff success in the world. That's what we want. But at the same time, I do wish we could shoot for someone a bit higher.
Hey, I understand. Everybody wants Mahomes, but Mahomes don't grow on trees. Right. Mike says Wilson Lance has to be Murray versus Rosen again. So he's talking about the Giants taking a quarterback. That it has to be that type of situation. Yeah, Mike, man, thank you very much, man. Ryan Clay says howdy. He's going. I always go fishing, Mike, but right now I don't got the New York Pier behind me. What's going on there, Ryan Clay, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, buddy. Love the picture icon, by the way. My ridiculous looking face. Read above, Chris. All right, let me take a look, Davey. DJ had no preseason, new offensive strategy, lost his main weapon, has a tight end that can't catch. we would have won 2 more games if Ingram could catch. I agree with that, Davey. Well, Ingram at least cost us 1 game for sure, and that's the Eagles game. Listen, I am not giving up on DJ. I am not gonna come on here and tell you though that I am fully bought in, and I'm not gonna come on here and tell you that I am encouraged with the way he's played this year. There's certain areas where I think he has gotten a little bit better. I think that in terms of his pre-snap reads, he's gotten better. I think he's gotten a little bit better in terms of ball security, but he's far from where I wanted him to be at the end of this season right now. But I knew he'd struggle to start the year, but I didn't see as much progression as I would have liked. But at the end of the day, I will definitely be on board if the New York Giants stick with him and they try to build this team around him. You get him a wide receiver. Maybe you change the play call if you feel like that's a huge problem for him, and I'm going to support him. But at the end of year 3, I'm going to be much more critical. That's the way I'm looking at it right now, Davey. That's the way I'm honestly looking at it. He needs to because, Davey, at the end of the day, whether it's his fault or not, and a lot of it's not his fault. I say it all the time. He was put in a horrible situation by the New York Giants. But at the end of the day, a rookie deal only lasts so long. And you have to figure out sooner than later if this guy's going to be worth committing 15% of the cap. And if you don't have that answer, or at least are close to that answer by the end of year 3, when you've only got 1 more year left on that rookie deal, you have to think about potentially making a change. So next year, I have to see progression. Have to see it.
Yeah, there's no realistic scenario where the Giants get a quarterback this offseason that is significantly better than Daniel Jones. I just don't really see. I mean, yeah, Dak Prescott's a free agent. He's probably going back to Dallas. But I just don't see a quarterback in the draft falling to where we're going to be picking, which is probably somewhere from 6 to 10, maybe, and 6 being a little, I guess, best case scenario for a draft pick. But I just don't see where the Giants move on from Jones this offseason and significantly improve. I think it makes sense to bring in a good backup in Brissett. I just don't see how you move on this offseason because I don't see Wilson or Lance falling all the way to 10 or 9, whatever pick we would have. So I just don't see a way it's possible.
Can't force a pick, especially at that position. DJ Smooth, thank you very much, man. We need a top 5 quarterback, Chris, an elite special guy. Listen, everybody in this chat would love it. You don't think every team in the league would want an elite special guy? There's a reason that they're elite special guys. They don't grow on trees. They don't just pop up. They're not easy to find. And a lot of those guys that are thought to be elite special guys are also put in unbelievable situations to succeed. Mike, and I love Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes is unbelievable. Can you think of a better situation in the history of football than Pat Mahomes coming into the league? He got to sit behind the smartest quarterback probably in the league in Alex Smith and learn from him for a year. He got to step in with the Andy Reid scheme, the smartest offensive guy in football since I've been watching. He has the fastest receiver. He has the most talented tight end. A big part of his quarterback success is being set up for success. So the way that I look at this, Mike, what harm does it do improving the team around Jones? We all know this is not a good situation for any quarterback that's going to step in here. The offensive line isn't great. We don't have a number 1 wide receiver. So we realize there's deficiencies. So why not build up the problems outside of the quarterback on this offense and see if the guy you invested the number 6 overall pick, when you do that, could be successful. And if he's not, then you make the move. And at least the guy that you're bringing in is set up for tremendous success.
That's the thing. Like right now as fans, you might lean one side or the other. We don't know what the real problem is. Is the problem that Daniel Jones doesn't have what he needs around him, or is the problem specifically Daniel Jones? If you get what you need around him and the Giants still suck next year, you'll know it's Daniel Jones. If you don't get him what he needs around him, you're still up in the air about, well, why is this team so bad offensively? Maybe it's Jason Garrett. Maybe it's Daniel Jones. Maybe it's the weapons he has. At least if you get him a good play caller and the people around him, you'll know specifically who the problem is next year. So that's why you got to do it. I think it makes a lot of sense. Get him his guys, get him his weapons, get Saquon back fully healthy, hopefully. Then we'll find out what the real problem is. That's
the way I look at it. And if he's still the problem, well, then even if you have to bring in a guy like that, this is the other way I look at it. Let's say Jones is just as bad as this year. Like, let's say he goes out there, he's got 10 touchdowns next year, and he looks lost, right? At least, even if you bring in a guy that is similar in terms of skill and potential to Daniel Jones, say you have to force a quarterback pick the next year, at least he's coming into a situation from the start at the beginning of his rookie deal where he's set up for success. And you could get the most out of his abilities. That's the way I look at it. Fix the team around your quarterback this offseason. That should be the goal. We're not in a spot in the draft to take that no-doubt quarterback. We're just not. So that's the way I look at it. Kyle, man, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Sup, Dana, sup, Mike. Respect to both of you guys. Good work always. And thank you so much, Kyle, man. I really appreciate that. And so does Mike. Who would we compare Jones to if he improved big time next year in his progress? I get asked this all the time, Mike. All right, give me your ceiling Daniel Jones prospect.
Ceiling Daniel Jones prospect. I don't know. I think you can go first. I'm not even going to know who to say.
I mean, I say it all the time, and maybe he could be a little bit better, but he's a top 10 quarterback right now in the league. He's probably top 7 the way he's played this year. I think Ryan Tannehill. I think that's the type of quarterback that I see Jones being. And he was kind of compared to him coming into the league, but I really do see a lot of similarities. He's a guy that was very athletic. He was a former wide receiver before he converted into a quarterback, I think midway through college, if I'm not mistaken, Tannehill. I think him and Jones have a lot of similarities, so that's the guy I often compare him to.
Yeah, Tannehill or like maybe a Kirk Cousins that's faster. I don't know. It's something like that.
That's a good one. A Kirk Cousins with more mobility. That's a good one too.
Right.
I like that one.
That's what I would say, yeah.
J-Man, thank you very much, man. Jones is basically Jameis Winston with wheels, and Eli Manning's personality. He's actually not Eli Manning. Great athlete, but he's actually not the quarterback talent of Eli Manning. Listen, J-Man, I don't think people – and I'm not saying Eli Manning was, his brother in terms of talent or Aaron Rodgers in terms of talent. Eli Manning was a tremendous talent. Eli Manning was the first overall pick. Eli Manning had a huge arm coming out of college. Eli Manning was he's the second greatest in my lifetime. He's probably the second best number 1 overall pick in NFL behind his brother, Peyton Manning. Eli Manning was a very talented quarterback. I don't think a lot of people realize that coming into the league. Jordan, man, thank you so much. Oh, sorry, Mike. No, you go ahead, Mike.
I just made a video about that specific thing before we got on. I see that too much about how people, they make that thing like, well, what if the Giants give up on Eli after a year or two? And like, what if Daniel Jones is that guy? And I see people kind of putting them in the same boat too much. And I try to preach like these guys are not the same prospects, they're not the same players, they're not the same people. I made a video about this whole topic, like a 15-minute video. Hopefully I'll upload it later, but I definitely want to dive into that more. So I made a video about it.
I'm looking forward to watching that one. Jordan says, but Chris, let's be honest. 2019 draft, the Giants could have taken defensive stars and waited for the deep 2020 draft. That has to be on Gettleman. Yeah, listen, I think that's fair. I listen, Jordan, if you watch my channel, I don't know if you did at the time. I was very much on board with drafting a defensive player at number 6, maybe taking the quarterback at 17. But I was it was a very rich defensive draft. You go back, you look at that draft, Mike, the top 10 prospects were all defensive players. And it was kind of my mindset in this year's draft. It was a very rich offensive tackle draft. That's why I wanted to go offensive tackle. We needed an offensive tackle. It was a very rich draft. And I think the Giants kind of picked against their strength. It was known as a weaker quarterback draft class. I think the Giants forced a quarterback pick. So Jordan, yeah, that's why I was upset on draft night. But at the end of the day, Jordan, I can't look in the past. I understand why the Giants felt like they needed to take a quarterback. And when they found the guy that they felt like was the guy, they said, we're going to take him at 6 because we don't want to risk him not getting to 17. I understand the logic behind it. But Jordan, I agree with you. I would have went defense. I will consistently say that. I would have went defense with that pick. And I hope that Daniel Jones proves me wrong. I hope that – listen, if Daniel Jones becomes a franchise quarterback, we don't care where he was picked. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day, and hopefully he becomes that. DJ Smooth, man, thank you very much. We need him to be Josh Allen next season, period. Josh Allen's an MVP candidate this year. I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but we need to see dramatic improvement. I'll say
I don't think he has the arm of a Josh Allen, and even like Josh Allen's huge. Like Josh Allen's like 6'5" and like 240, 250 probably. Like I just don't look at them as the similar type quarterback. And Josh Allen, pretty good pocket awareness, can get out of a lot of sticky situations, and Jones's pocket maneuvering has not been all that great. So like I don't really see them as the same prospect, but I'll take Josh Allen, of course. That's definitely something I would sign up for.
I look at Josh. I said it going into the year, and I'm wrong a lot of times. I was not a fan of Arizona coming into the year.
Me too.
They've proven me wrong. I was a huge fan of Josh Allen. People ask me who's going to be the breakout quarterback in football this year. I said Josh Allen. I'm a big fan of his. Guys like Josh Allen don't grow on trees, Mike. You watch that guy play. Yeah. You talk about the eye test. You don't just look at the stat sheet. There's like 3 of those guys. Like Josh, in terms of his upside, like Josh Allen is big. He's mobile. He can make every throw in the book. He's not accurate before this year. But in terms of his ceiling and his raw physical tools, Dan Jones doesn't touch that. But no quarterbacks do.
I remember watching him at Wyoming during that like whole pre-draft process of him playing in front of basically nobody. This like monstrous talented kid who could make every throw in the book, was like this physical specimen. And I'm just thinking to myself, oh my God, if this guy puts it together, he's going to be like one of the best quarterbacks in football. But his accuracy was such a big issue where like I couldn't get on board. Like that's why I had Baker and Rosen, and I had him and Darnold on the same tier, but I was like, I can't really fully buy in because his accuracy is just so inconsistent. Now he's fixing it. He fixed his mechanics, and now Josh Allen is trending towards a top 10 quarterback in the league, probably already there, and has the tools to be top 5 one day. So, I mean, it looks like the Bills got it right for sure.
Yeah, and he fits there well, too. The windy conditions at Buffalo, he's definitely got the arm to throw in those winds. Jordan, man, thank you very much. He says, that's the one I already read, right? Back in the end, yeah, I already read that one, right? Back in the end of 2018, people knew the 2020.
I don't remember this one.
Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. Back in the end of 2018, people knew the 2020 and 2021 drafts would have very good quarterbacks, and 2019 would be weak. Reaching for Jones is damning. Yeah, Jordan, listen, in retrospect, it's a fair thing to bring up. In retrospect, 2018 now, but one thing you can give him, if you want to play it that way, one thing you can give him credit for, and I'm not saying give him credit for the Barkley pick. I understand people that think taking a running back there was a mistake, but was passing up on a quarterback in 2018 because there was a lot of pressure for him to take Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen, and he didn't. So you could say he made the right decision, even though you could have taken Josh Allen. But I'm a big Allen fan. I don't think Allen has a lot of success with the Giants if we take him. He was a project, and I don't think the Giants were going to set him up for success here, in my personal opinion. You look at the problems we've got here compared to Buffalo. DJ Smooth, man, thank you very much, man. Joe Judge needs his Brady. Every coach needs their Brady. But I agree. Yeah, I would love Tom Brady. He's like the greatest quarterback in the history of football. So, yeah, Joe Judge could certainly use his Brady. Let's see. I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Jordan, man, thank you very much, man. He says, I think a modern Eli prospect is a Josh Allen type. Josh Allen's very mobile. Josh Allen to me, I mean, maybe you're talking strictly arm strength, but Allen to me he's kind of like Newton, Mike.
Yeah, I think he's what Jamarcus Russell was supposed to be. It's probably what it is.
God, what a bust he was, man. You talk about a guy that NFL scouts and teams just completely got enamored with off of one game. I remember watching, I think it was Notre Dame, the national championship game. He had a huge game, and he went number 1 overall. What a complete bust he was. Oh, my God.
Did you ever hear the story about that guy, how they gave him the blank tapes one day, and he said he watched them, and like he didn't know they were blank tapes, and like the Raiders knew the whole time they were blank. It was just one of the funniest stories I've heard about like a draft prospect. How like you give this guy these tapes to watch on the defense you're playing, he says he watches them, the tapes were blank the whole time, and like you could just tell he's a liar, didn't care, didn't put any time into his work. It was just crazy to see that for a first overall pick.
Jamarcus Russell did that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Imagine that happened in New York, man. We would want to kill the guy if that happened in New York.
and Jordan says Darnold with the Giants would have been a great quarterback, in my opinion. Darnold took a huge leap last year, and the Jets did everything to dismantle the team around him. I'm going to disagree, and I actually don't hate Darnold, Jordan. I think he's been put in a situation to fail, but I don't think he would have made it here either. I don't think the Giants have a much better situation. The offensive line up until this year, even this year, the pass blocking hasn't been great. I don't know if he would have made it here, Mike. I really don't. And I think
he would have
in the right spot could, but I don't think this is the right one.
Yeah, he would have been a little better here than the Jets probably, but even then we still would have been on the fence after year 3 with Darnold, where it's like we don't know if he's the guy or not. So like we would have been in that same situation basically, but I think he would have had a little more success here than the Jets.
Yeah, well, but he would have had more success with a college roster than the Jets. DJ Smooth says 10 top 10 next year, elite status MVP for Jones. We need it. Well, I mean, we would love it. I'm not going to go as far to say that I need an MVP. Because Eli Manning, Mike, if we're being fair, outside of 1 year, was really never brought up in terms of being a top 3 MVP candidate, top 4 MVP candidate. 2011 he was, but outside of that year he wasn't. I want a guy that is a top 10 quarterback. That's what I want. I don't know if I necessarily need to say at the end of next year that he's a top 10, but I need to say that he's definitely trending that way. And I need to see consistency. And by the end of year 4, I need to know he's a top 10 quarterback. But I need to see significant growth next year. I'm not going to put numbers on it. I'm not going to say he's got to be a top 5 MVP candidate. But, Mike, we need to feel good about our quarterback after year 3. It can't be, if he gets this, and this. No, we have to say to ourselves, this guy has the potential to be a very good quarterback in the NFL. We need to believe it, and then we'll see what we got going into year 4. It's a year-by-year process, but there has to be significant growth next year.
I agree. Yeah, no more excuses after next year. I mean, once the Giants hopefully get the team he needs around him next year, we'll know, as we said before. I think we'll actually know like if he's the guy or not, and hopefully he is, because that would definitely help us a lot. But if he struggles next year with a better team around him, it might be a Daniel Jones problem at that point.
Yeah. And Hamza says, "Do you know that James Brown?" Yeah, we were talking about it early, Hamza. Obviously, the really bad news of the day between him and Garrett. Both of them have the the virus, and that's going to be we were talking. I don't know if you definitively told me what you think the Giants are going to do. Do you think they're going to start Logan Ryan at the corner? Do you think they're going to start McKinney, or do you think they're going to go with one of these unknown guys at that second corner spot?
I've been asking for Julian Love. That's never going to happen at outside corner. I guess you would have to think it's Logan Ryan, and then you put McKinney in there more at safety and play him 80, 90% of the snaps. I don't know where they go with it because they have all these no-name guys after Yadam who already isn't the best himself. He's been better, but he's not a cornerback one, as we know. So that's why I've always said the most important guy on this defense, in my opinion, was James Bradbury, because once you lose him, who the hell is left? It's not many people. So they have a lot of problems right now. The Browns are passing the ball well. It's going to be a concern for sure. They need to have Darnay Holmes play as well.
Yeah, oh God, we need Holmes. And I love McKinney. Yeah. You saw McKinney get beat up in the slot last week. They were putting Hopkins in the slot a lot in that football game. Jordan, man, thank you so much again, man. He says, if Barkley gets hurt again, what's the plan for 2022? Well, this is the biggest question for me, Mike, going into next year for the Giants. When talking about Saquon Barkley. You know as well as I do, when it comes to the 5th year on a rookie option, you have to make that decision before the year starts. So the Giants going into next year, by April, I think it is, have to decide whether or not they're going to extend him like they did with Ingram and Peppers this year. So that's going to be the plan. If he goes down and you extend him, obviously he's going to still be here going into 2022. But the question is, are they going to give him that extension? Now, me personally, Mike, and I know maybe some people may disagree with this, Barkley is coming off an injury, so I understand the reluctancy to do that. I would extend him on the 5th year. I'm going to tell you why. If I extend him on the 5th year, it then gives me more flexibility at the end of the year, if he plays the full 16 games, to either A, work out an extension, or B, he's more valuable on the trade market because he's still under one more year worth of control where he's more valuable to a team that may inquire about a trade. So I think you have I shouldn't say have, but I think they will and probably should extend him on the 5th year of that rookie deal going into next year.
Yeah, you might as well. I don't know how much he makes on that 5th year, but you would have to think if Saquon comes back next year and puts up an Adrian Peterson type year off his ACL where it's not 2,000 yards. Let's say Saquon has 1,500 rushing yards and looks incredible. You don't want to go into that next offseason having to extend him. You'd rather have him for that one extra 5th year. Prove it to me twice in a row in 2 years that you can do that. Then we'll extend you. You don't want to see it for 1 year and kind of be left up in the air about, I don't know if this is the guy or not. Should we extend them? Running backs get hurt a lot. They don't live up to the contracts. You want to see it 2 years instead of 1. So I think it would make the most sense to pick up that 5th year option. But as we've said, if Gettleman's gone, and we know he's a Gettleman guy and a Shermer guy, we don't know how Joe Judge or the next GM feels about it because Joe Judge comes from a system where it was a lot of rotating running backs. The Patriots never paid a running back a very high amount. The highest they spent was a 26th overall pick on Sony Michel. So they're not really a organization that really gives a lot to the running back. So if they feel that way about Saquon Barkley, then maybe they don't pick it up. I just think it makes the most sense because you already have him on the roster.
Yeah. And DJ Smooth says he's got to take off 30 to 40 touchdowns with weapons. Come on, guys. I would say 30 touchdowns next year. I think that's fair or close to it. Again, I don't want to put numbers on it, but if he gives me 28-9, 28-10, and we're winning football games, we make the playoffs, we win 9 games, I think that is a big step in the right direction. I think he's got to be approaching close to 30 touchdowns, especially with the extra game, playing 17 games. So, yeah, I think 30 touchdowns is a fair expectation going into next year if you fix the rest of this team. I agree with that, DJ Smooth. I think 30 touchdowns is a fair expectation. Jordan says, what if he held out, though, like Bell or other running backs? Well, that's when it gets dicey. And Jordan, I would hope that he wouldn't, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's a business. I would understand if he did. And that's when the Giants have to come, they have to that's when they would have to either A, extend him more than likely, or trade him. I think that's when you have to make that decision. You either extend him or you trade him. And obviously you'd have to play a full 16 games to warrant holding out. If he gets hurt again, he can't really hold out. If he does, well, you say, okay, well, I'm not paying you. But if he has a really good season, I think that's when you're at that crossroad where you say to yourself, I'm going to tell you this right now, Mike. If Jones is not the answer, Saquon's getting extended if he proves he's healthy. Because you're going to give that money to him, and you won't have to pay a quarterback. You'll bring in another quarterback on a rookie deal, and he'll be there to support that young quarterback through the first 5 years of his rookie contract. To me, where it gets dicey, if Barkley's completely healthy and figuring out whether or not I'm going to extend him, is if Jones takes a monumental leap. Because then you have to think to yourself, is it because of Saquon? Are we going to be able to afford both Saquon and Jones? Kind of like how it ruined the Falcons when they had to pay both Julio and Matt Ryan because they couldn't fill in the rest of their roster. If Jones is bad and Barkley's healthy and plays well, I think he's getting extended after next year, if I had to guess. But if Jones does not play well, that is. If Jones plays really well, that's where it becomes dicey, and you have to think about the long-term future of this team.
Yeah, you don't want to pull the Dallas Cowboys and extend the running back before the quarterback because now they have Zeke paid for a long time. He's been terrible this year without an offensive line in front of him. And then you have Dak Prescott coming off an injury now, which is even worse, and they don't know whether to extend them or not. So you put yourself in a worse situation. You always try to extend the quarterback first. And as you said, if it's a situation where Barkley comes back and looks great, but Daniel Jones is not the guy, I think it gives you more leeway to extend Barkley because at that point you do have the rookie on the rookie quarterback on the rookie contract. So it would help. I wouldn't pay a running back that much money, but I'm prepared for it if that happens because Barkley is one of the best talents in the league at his position. So you have to kind of look at it in a realistic way. And if he does play that well, then he will earn that extension.
And a lot of it's going to come down to, like you said earlier, if Gettleman's still the GM, because Gettleman's obviously the guy that drafted him. Mike, man, thank you very much, man. I don't care about Jones' stats. To me, the biggest issue is still doesn't sense pressure in the pocket well and locks into his number one wide receiver, even during the win streak. I think his pocket awareness has gotten better, but I agree it's still not good. It's better. It's still not good. You see glimpses where it's definitely improving. We talked about that, I think, on your channel last week, where you saw him sliding in the pocket, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. There's games and instances where I see improvements, but it's still not where it needs to be. There's no doubt about it. And there are definitely a lot of instances, like Mike just said, where he definitely locks onto his number one wide receiver. Some of that may have to do with the fact of the play calling, and some of it may have to do with the fact that, he is just not progressed enough in this offense yet.
Yeah, he looked good in that. Before he got hurt in that Bengals game, it was one of his best pocket awareness games I've seen. But outside of that, I really, am kind of I haven't been too enthusiastic about what I've seen from him with the pocket awareness and sliding the right way. We've seen him slide into pressure before, which is definitely not what you want. So it has to get better. I do agree with that statement.
Yeah. Guys, we're going to go for about another 10 minutes. We usually go about an hour and a half. Go ahead and ask your questions, and then we're going to wrap this up. I want to say again, thank you to everybody for being here. Thank you guys for showing all the support that you guys do on both of our channels. Going over to MiketooNice, we'll be doing the same thing over there next week. So going over there, check them out. Usually we do this on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. I was still hungover from the loss, so we did it a little bit later this week. Ezra says, what if DJ is mediocre, but he would take a pay cut after the rookie deal? Would you keep him then? No. Ezra, personally, no. I'd rather, if he's not improving, Ezra, I'd rather bring in a guy in a new rookie deal at the quarterback position. I'm not messing with it. He's got to prove that he's the guy no later than by year 4, and he's got to show some progress by the end of next year for me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you for sure. You don't want to settle for mediocrity at the most important position in football. So I think you have to move on at that point, even, despite the pay cut.
Yeah. Independent man, thank you very much. He says, how long do you think McCoy will last as a second string? Even if Jones is the guy, him being injury prone is problematic. How can we approve the backup quarterback? Yeah, we were talking about that. Independent, by the way, I know you remember. I don't know what you're doing later. I'm going to be live in about an hour and 20 minutes. Going to do about an hour stream with you guys. I try to do that once a month, and it's the only day I can fit it in. So I'm going to be live for my member stream in about an hour. But in terms of the backup quarterback, we talked about that earlier, Independent. We both agreed. I think Jacoby Brissett's a great option. But yeah, I think we do need an upgrade at the backup quarterback position. If nothing else, even if you're a fan that completely believes in Daniel Jones and you think it's all the scheme and it's all the talent around him, and if it improves, he's going to be dynamite. Even if you're one of those fans, like Independent Outsider just said, he still has shown a history for injuries. And if he's going to be missing 2 or 3 games a year, kind of like Ben was throughout his entire career, you need a pretty talented backup to come in and that could maintain winning streaks and win you football games, similar to what Teddy Bridgewater was able to do for the Saints last year. And yeah, I think we will need an upgrade at the backup quarterback position next offseason. I do believe that.
Yeah, Colt McCoy is not the backup you dream of. He's fine, but he's not going to come in there and win you games. I know he won in Seattle, but it was not really him. It was the running backs and the defense. So you got to expect better from your backup next year, hopefully.
Yeah. Kyle says, best wide free agent signing. Who would be the best fit outside of the three guys, Godwin, Robinson, Galladay? I know we want our next burst, but I like all three. Yeah, it's Corey Davis, I think. That's the guy that I've talked about a lot, and I think you tend to agree with me, Mike, in terms of outside of the premier names. Davis is still pretty big. I don't know how he's doing. He got off to a really good start with Tennessee. Then he kind of tailed off a little bit, I think. But he's tall. He's talented. I think he'd fit the scheme, and I don't think he would cost as much. Yeah,
Davis is on pace for a 1,000-yard season, which is great. I think it's his first one. And outside of these guys, I think Sammy Watkins is another name on hopefully what would be a cheap contract, even though he's pretty injury-prone himself. But I think Corey Davis on the right contract makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Watkins is another guy I brought up. He's definitely going to leave. You look at Kansas City; they just paid Mahomes $50 million a year. They're going to have to keep Hill. Like, they extended Hill. They're not going to have the money to keep Watkins, so he will be available. And he's another guy, tall threat, and he does kind of fit what we're looking for. He's not an unbelievable weapon, but maybe you draft a wide receiver and you bring in a veteran presence like him as well to try to beef up the roster. He's another option, but I wouldn't view him as a number one guy. Now Bradbury is out on COVID. Yes, Alex, he is. Bradbury's out, as well as Jason Garrett, the play caller. We will have Freddie Kitchens will be our play caller this week. Let's see what we got here. We need to Chris stop spamming. Maybe he's talking to another Chris because obviously I'm not spamming. Noam says 2:15 in the morning in Israel, but happy to be here with you guys. If you're ever in Israel, hit me up. We'll get a drink. Keep up the amazing work. Mike, you said you were going to Israel in a couple of days, right?
I guess I am now.
So you get him a drink when he gets there. No, I appreciate you for being here. That's how you know you got dedicated subscribers, Mike, when people are staying up till 2:30 a.m. to listen to you talk.
Yeah, that's the time I woke up today, 2:15 p.m. I know he's talking about a.m., but I've been living the bum life since I've been locked up in my room, so I know how it feels.
And Mike, man, thank you very much. I get the desire to look to the past to find comparisons, but 2020 isn't 07, guys. This is a new Giants team. Let's stop comparing and build a new Giants era. Yeah, I maybe you're talking about comparing Eli to Daniel Jones and everything else. Yeah, I mean, listen. There's definitely optimistic things to look at this year, Mike, and I think you definitely agree with me on that. I think we're lockstep. The coaching staff, for the most part, is very encouraging. The offensive line is definitely getting better. It's not where we need it to be yet, but it's getting better. The defense is far exceeded our expectations. So there's definitely a lot of pros to take out of this year regardless. Obviously, the main thing, you can't really leave this year being overly optimistic to quarterback, but there were definitely things from within the season that you really leave here saying to yourself, yeah, I believe that is going to be a good piece going into 2021.
Yeah, I like this comment because this is kind of one of the reasons I wasn't the biggest Gettleman guy, is because he wants to build a team like it's the 80s and 90s. We have to live in 2020, and how he was anti-analytics at first, then he got his computer folks, and we know the rest. But I look at this season as an accomplishment in some ways, because you come away with it thinking we have our head coach, we have our defensive coordinator, we have a really good draft class, it looks like, assuming Andrew Thomas hopefully pans out. We got to see more from McKinney. But all the guys after him, like Pear and Darnay Holmes and Carter Coughlin and Tay Crowder, even, they're all proving, and I'm sure I'm missing more Lemieux sometimes. Are proving, they can play in this league. So you come away with the draft class looking great. Your two big free agent signings in Bradbury and Martinez are looking good. Leonard Williams needs a contract extension. We know that, but there's a lot of good takeaways from this, from this past year. And even looking at the offensive line, a lot of good young, talented players. Andrew Thomas, Matt Pear, Will Hernandez, when he plays, has been fine. And even Shane Lemieux, of course, needs to work on the pass blocking, as we know. But Nick Gates was another great takeaway. So there are good things about it. You have to look at it in the positive aspect. And look, the Giants aren't there. They're not a top 10 team. They're probably league average at best, but they're moving in the right direction. So that's all you got to ask for.
Yeah, and Marcus says, Mike, did you give Garrett COVID-19? Thank you.
I'm
Mike?
not trying to give anyone. I'm not trying to give anyone COVID. I'm trying to avoid my family and everything. It concerns me though when people like my age. For people my age, I don't care. When people like over like 50 get it, that's when I start to get a little concerned. I don't know how old Jason Garrett is, but hopefully he's all right. It'd be nice to have a new offensive coordinator next year. But obviously, I hope the dude's all right. But no, I've
Yeah,
not been in contact with him as far as I know.
yeah, of course. We hope he's all right. Waterfly says, Entertainer host, 50s mods and Afghanistan Punkum and me, only ones here tonight, just saying. I appreciate you for being here, Waterfly. Thank you very much, man. Yeah, listen, man, I know it's also not like a normal time I'll be giving out more mods, by the way, some of my members, but obviously I normally stream later in the night, but I appreciate all the support you guys always show me. Everybody, all my mods and all my regular watchers. Watch Medicine, man. Thank you very much, man. We are looking at a top 10 pick this year again. Would you rather get a wide receiver one in free agency and draft a defensive stud or get a pass rusher? That's the golden question everybody gets. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get either one because of the money we're going to have to tie up. But if I had to pick one, I'll let you start, Mike. If you had to pick one, would you rather get the premier defensive presence or the premier wide receiver in free agency?
Yeah, the guy I went over this was Shaq Barrett, outside linebacker for the Buccaneers. That's the one guy that I really want. If they have to settle for Allen Robinson at the wide receiver, that's fine. But the guy I really want this offseason is Shaq Barrett. So that's the one I kind of want right there.
I think I'd go with wide receiver. If I knew I could get Allen Robinson, like if I knew like that Plaxico Burress fit for Eli Manning early on in his career, because it would free up so much for me earlier on in the draft where I wouldn't feel forced to take a wide receiver. And I could try to build up the rest of this defense. I think I would like to get that wide receiver out of the way, and I could still draft the wide receiver in the draft in a very rich wide receiver draft class, but I wouldn't feel pressured to have to take one early on in the draft. So if I had to pick one, I think I would go with the wide receiver to make sure. Because to me, this offseason, Mike, is all – if Jones is coming back, which I think we're both in agreement he probably is, to me, this offseason is about finding out if Daniel Jones is going to be the guy going forward. That's what next year is about, more so than anything else. Obviously, winning football games and winning a Super Bowl, but in terms of storylines on the football team, that's what it's about. So I need to make sure as a GM this year, I do everything in my power to give him no excuses, to leave no excuses. And I do, especially if you're Gettleman. Like Gettleman knows if he's going to be back, he knows that his legacy rests on the shoulder of Daniel Jones. Yes, he'll be credited for other things if the offensive line progresses and some members of the defense that he drafted and the offensive line, whatever. But in the end, the primary piece that he brought in was Daniel Jones. And he knows if Jones fails, people are going to look at Gettleman as a failure. So Gettleman, as the GM and the Giants just as an organization, their goal this offseason has to be to do everything in their power to make sure Daniel Jones is successful in 2021. And that starts with the wide receiver.
Yep, 100% right. That should be the biggest goal is just finding out if you have the right quarterback. Because if you don't, then there's only so far you can go in the NFL. I mean, it takes the perfect roster without a good quarterback to win. And if the Giants don't have a good quarterback, then you need the perfect roster. And we still don't have a perfect roster. So get Daniel Jones the guys he needs. As I said before, take the excuses out of it. Let's see if he's the real guy or not. And if not, then you got to know you kind of got to start over again. But not completely start over because we have a good roster right now, it seems like, outside of, maybe some positions that are important, cornerback 2, outside linebacker and such, and wide receiver. But we're close is what I'm saying. So we're getting there.
Yeah. But, guys, we are going to close this out. First, again, I want to say thank you to everybody for being here. Thank you guys for all the support. We had over 400 people for the majority of the stream, so thank you guys for checking it out. Even when the New York Giants right now are going through a little bit of a, we were all very high going into last week, and now it's kind of – so hopefully they surprise us all again. Let me just read this real quick from Mike, man. Mike, man, thank you. Mike is a big fan of the channel. He says, okay, when we finish 5 or 11 or 6 or 10, who do you think is the fall guy? The last 5 or so years, there's always a fall guy due to Mara's insanity or whatever. Mike, I thought going into the year, if there was going to be a fall guy, it was obvious. It was Gettleman. Like, it wasn't going to be Judge. You just brought him in. And it wasn't going to be Jones. It was his second year as a quarterback. So that's what I thought going into the year. And even if Jones was the fall guy, that's Gettleman as well because he drafted him. So if there's going to be a fall guy, I think it would be Gettleman. But I could be wrong, Mike, and we'll see at the end of the year. I think the ownership is going to look at this season as enough progress and enough to be optimistic about the future of this team not to have a full guy. I think at the end of the year, ownership says, I want to keep this thing intact. I want to try to keep this together and build off of what we were able to build off the previous offseason. That's my mindset. I think that's what will happen. But if there's going to be a fall guy, it would be Gettleman.
There's two I'm thinking of. The main one is Gettleman, of course, because this is his roster outside of like 4 or 5, maybe 3 or 4 Jerry Reese guys that are left, and the Giants lose a lot of these games because of the talent. They don't really have the talent to win. They have a good coaching staff, we think, but the other guy I was going to mention is Jason Garrett. A lot of people are going to blame him as well because of the offense not being great. We're as bad as the Jets in a lot of offensive categories, and a lot of that goes back to Jason Garrett. You could blame the quarterback. A lot of people are going to blame Jason Garrett, though, and I feel like there's a certain group of fans that
you hit it on the head. I wasn't even thinking coordinators. That's the fall guy. That will be the fall guy. I do think Jason Garrett loses his job, and I think that's the fall guy. I think he's the guy that takes the blame. Yep. I'm with you on that. I think Garrett. I agree with you.
I hope it's him and Gettleman, but we'll see. I hope so.
I think it'll be. I think Garrett. I think they'll make a change. Well, if they're going to make a change, that's the most likely spot on this roster. I'll agree with that. But Mike, man, I want to say, man, thank you so much for coming on, man. Always have a blast talking Giants football with you. I hope you feel better. I wasn't even aware about everything. I hope you feel better. And yeah, close it out, man. I always let my guests close it out.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks for having me, of course, and everyone that joined us. I hope you had a good time. I don't know how we went on Sunday night, but I think we all hope for that, and hopefully Washington they lose to Seattle. We didn't
do our picks. We didn't do our picks. Do your pick.
All right, I'll give you a score, I guess. Oh man, people are gonna hate me for this one. 27-13 Cleveland. All right, see ya.
All right, so he's got it by 4. I think it's closer than that. I am going to pick Cleveland. I picked Seattle the week before. I got to give you guys my honest opinion. I want to pick the Giants with all my heart, all my soul. I just don't think we stack up with Jones out and Bradbury out. I think it'll be a little bit closer, but I think the defense keeps them to, I'll say 23. I think the defense does a pretty good job, similar to how they did against Seattle. I'll go 23-16. I'll go Cleveland by a touchdown. I'll go Cleveland by about 7, maybe 23. Maybe we could keep it within a field goal, 23-20. But I think we keep them to the low 20s. But we lose a pretty close football game. But Cleveland comes out.
Hey, positive spin. Last time we both picked against the Giants, they won, which was Seattle. So that's the positive spin on it.
There you go. We're trying to remain consistent, guys. But guys, you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you guys soon. I'm sure Mike. Well, you already said you're gonna have a video up soon, so check that out. Yeah. And we'll see you guys soon. Thank you guys for tuning in. All right.